Friends, if you want to watch the super hit movie Home Alone 2, Lost in New York in English, then you are in for a real treat, because today's video is going to be full of fun, nostalgia, and exciting information. And if you are visiting our channel for the first time, make sure to subscribe so you never miss any of our movie-related updates, reviews, and behind-the-scenes facts. Friends, in today's video, we're going to talk about one of the most iconic and entertaining family films of all time, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, which released in 1992 and became an instant global success. Even decades later, this movie continues to capture hearts with its perfect mix of comedy, adventure, and emotion. In this video, we will explore every detail about this film. We'll start by talking about what makes Home Alone 2 so special and why it remains one of the most beloved sequels ever made. Then, we'll dive into where you can watch the movie. I'll give you complete information on the OTT platforms, streaming services, and satellite channels where this movie is currently available, so you can enjoy it in the best quality possible. Whether you prefer streaming it online, renting it digitally, or watching it on TV, I'll guide you through all the options to make your movie night perfect. We'll also explore the entire filmmaking journey, starting from the early stages of pre-production, when the script was first developed. I'll talk about how the creators built on the success of the first Home Alone movie and came up with an even bigger and more adventurous storyline this time. You'll learn about how the locations were selected, including the beautiful and bustling backdrop of New York City, which plays such an important role in the movie's charm. We'll discuss the filming process, the challenges faced during production, and the creative techniques used to shoot some of the movie's most iconic and hilarious scenes. We'll also take a detailed look into the technical departments behind this masterpiece, the brilliant direction by Chris Columbus, the sharp and clever editing, the outstanding cinematography that perfectly captures the holiday magic of New York, and the incredible sound design that elevates every scene. Of course, we can't forget about the unforgettable music by John Williams, whose iconic score added so much warmth, suspense, and excitement to the film. Next, we'll talk about the film's budget, box office performance, and its massive success worldwide. I'll share how much it cost to make, how audiences reacted when it first hit theaters in 1992, and how it became one of the highest-grossing films of its time. We'll also discuss its cultural impact and why Home Alone 2 is still considered one of the ultimate holiday movies for families all over the world. And yes, we'll dive deep into the storyline itself. I'll give you a fun review of the plot, where Kevin McCallister, once again separated from his family during the holidays, ends up in New York City all alone with his father's credit card. While he enjoys a luxurious stay at the Plaza Hotel and explores the magic of New York, his adventure takes an unexpected turn when he runs into his old enemies, Harry and Marv, now known as the Sticky Bandits. We'll relive how Kevin uses his wit, creativity, and hilarious traps to outsmart the villains once again, making this sequel just as fun and thrilling as the original. After that, we'll take a closer look at the star cast. Macaulay Culkin delivers yet another brilliant performance as Kevin McCallister, capturing the charm, cleverness, and mischievous energy that audiences adore. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern return as the unforgettable Harry and Marv, providing nonstop laughter with their over-the-top antics. Catherine O'Hara and John Hughes once again play Kevin's loving but frantic parents, while other supporting characters add their own special touch to the story. We'll also discuss the new characters introduced in this film, like the mysterious Pigeon Lady and the charming toy store owner Mr. Duncan, who add depth and heart to the narrative. But that's not all. We'll also uncover many fascinating behind-the-scenes facts about Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. We'll talk about how certain action sequences were filmed, the clever practical effects used for Kevin's traps, and how the production team recreated some of the movie's funniest moments. You'll also learn about the inspiration behind choosing New York as the main setting, why the Plaza Hotel became such an iconic location, and some surprising trivia that even die-hard fans might not know. And finally, we'll explore the legacy of Home Alone 2 and why it continues to hold a special place in the hearts of audiences worldwide. From its holiday spirit and hilarious comedy to its unforgettable soundtrack and timeless performances, this movie has become more than just a sequel. It's a tradition for millions of families to watch every year during the festive season. So, friends, this video is going to be packed with everything you need to know about Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, from its making and cast to its story, success, and behind-the-scenes secrets. That's why I request you to watch this video till the very end, because we're going to take you on a complete journey through the world of this unforgettable classic. Now, without wasting any more time, let's begin the video. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York builds its story like a beautifully wrapped holiday gift, unfolding layer by layer until Kevin McCallister's adventure in Manhattan becomes much more than a slapstick comedy. At first glance, the narrative follows a straightforward, linear structure, but beneath its simplicity lies an intricate blend of action, emotion, humor, and holiday magic that keeps audiences invested from start to finish. Everything begins with chaos, as usual in the McCallister household, when the entire family prepares for yet another Christmas vacation, this time to sunny Miami. Right away, the opening sequence sets up tension and resentment between Kevin and his brother Buzz during the school pageant, planting seeds of conflict that drive Kevin's isolation later. Instead of resolving it, the adults dismiss Kevin's feelings, and this pushes him into a sense of being misunderstood and ignored, laying the emotional foundation for his upcoming solo journey. The first major turning point comes during the frantic dash to the airport, a classic Home Alone tradition. In the frenzy, Kevin accidentally follows a man wearing the same coat as his dad, boards the wrong plane, and ends up thousands of miles away from his family. Here, the story's point of view becomes entirely Kevin-centric, keeping us glued to his experience as he lands in New York City with nothing but his father's bag, his wits, and an unlimited credit card. This is where the film's emotional and thematic tone shifts. Unlike the first movie, where Kevin was trapped in his own home, this time he's free in one of the busiest, most magical cities in the world. New York City becomes an entire playground, and the Plaza Hotel turns into his personal kingdom as he outsmarts the snooty staff using his Talkboy recorder, a clever device that lets Kevin wield adult power in a child's world. Act 2 evolves into the heart of the narrative, where the fun and fantasy of Kevin's independence meet the looming threat of real-world dangers. The toy store, Duncan's toy chest, emerges as a symbolic centerpiece, a place filled with joy, innocence, and holiday spirit. Kevin's interaction with Mr. Duncan, who explains his mission to donate profits to a children's hospital, quietly plants the film's moral compass. The true meaning of Christmas isn't luxury, but generosity. Meanwhile, fate intervenes when Kevin crosses paths with Harry and Marv, the villains from the first film, now rebranded as the Sticky Bandits. This encounter ties Kevin's personal journey to a larger external conflict and raises the stakes. Harry and Marv plan to rob Duncan's toy chest on Christmas Eve, threatening to destroy something bigger than Kevin himself. The midpoint of the film pivots from accidental mischief to intentional heroism. Kevin overhears the Sticky Bandits' plan, and this time, unlike in the first movie, he actively chooses to fight back. This decision marks a huge thematic evolution in Kevin's character. In Home Alone, survival and self-protection drove his creativity. In Home Alone 2, his actions are rooted in empathy and responsibility. This choice also sets up one of the film's most iconic relationships, the one between Kevin and the mysterious Pigeon Lady in Central Park. Initially frightened by her appearance, Kevin slowly opens up to her and learns about loneliness, forgiveness, and second chances. This emotional thread deepens the narrative, transforming the Pigeon Lady from a scary stranger into a symbol of hope, compassion, and unlikely friendship. The story reaches its low point when Kevin's elaborate charade at the plaza crumbles. The staff discovers that his father's credit card was reported stolen, leading to a hilarious yet humiliating chase through the hotel. Seconds later, as he flees into the streets, he's cornered by Harry and Marv, colliding Kevin's personal embarrassment with real danger. This moment forces Kevin to confront reality. His freedom has consequences, and his mistakes have led him straight into the jaws of the villains. But instead of retreating, Kevin leans into his greatest strength, his cleverness. He crafts a daring plan to outsmart the bandits once again, using his uncle's abandoned townhouse as the ultimate battlefield. The film now explodes into its third act, a masterclass in escalating comedic tension through clever set pieces and slapstick chaos. Kevin's booby traps at the townhouse are bigger, more dangerous, and more outrageous than ever. From bricks hurled off a rooftop to electrified sinks, exploding toilets, staple guns, paint cans, kerosene ropes, and falling beams, every gag builds on the last, turning pain into comedy without losing momentum. But this sequence isn't just spectacle, it mirrors Kevin's growth as a strategist. He doesn't simply react. He anticipates every move Harry and Marv make, proving that his intelligence and resourcefulness have evolved since the first movie. The climax, however, reaches beyond slapstick into something emotional and thematic. After leading the bandits into Central Park, Kevin finds himself trapped. Just when defeat seems inevitable, the Pigeon Lady comes to his rescue in one of the film's most memorable scenes, showering Harry and Marv with birdseed as flocks of pigeons descend. This moment reframes fear into connection. The very woman Kevin once avoided becomes his protector, underscoring the film's core message: kindness creates unexpected allies. Meanwhile, running parallel to Kevin's adventure is his mother's desperate search for her son, which adds emotional weight and suspense throughout the story. Kate's journey across New York culminates in one of the most heartwarming sequences of the film when she finally finds Kevin beneath the enormous Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. This reunion carries emotional resonance because the tree itself represents hope, forgiveness, and the magic of the season, making the moment more than just a family coming back together. It's a thematic resolution to Kevin's feelings of being misunderstood and forgotten. The narrative doesn't stop there. It gives space for softer epilogue beats that deepen its themes. Mr. Duncan thanks Kevin for saving the toy store and gifts him the 2 turtle doves, a symbolic gesture that Kevin immediately shares with the Pigeon Lady, showing his growth from selfish independence to selfless generosity. Even the Plaza Hotel gets its comedic comeuppance when the McCallisters discover Kevin's extravagant room service bill, closing the film with laughter while keeping its heart intact. Overall, the story uses a conventional 3-act structure, but within that framework, it experiments with tone, emotional layering, and thematic depth. It balances Kevin's personal journey with larger ideas about empathy, loneliness, generosity, and family. The narrative keeps viewers engaged with constant tension, freedom versus responsibility, independence versus connection, and delivers catharsis through perfectly timed comedy, escalating danger, and heartfelt reunions. More than just a sequel, Home Alone 2 uses its familiar formula to explore deeper character arcs, turning what could have been a simple retread into a holiday adventure filled with heart, humor, and timeless charm. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York may seem like a fun holiday comedy on the surface, but one of the reasons it stands the test of time is the way it gives its characters clear personalities, believable motivations, and arcs that feel emotionally rewarding. Unlike many sequels that simply recycle the same formulas, this film manages to deepen its characters while still keeping the spirit of the first movie intact. Every main player, whether it's Kevin, his family, the villains, or the new faces introduced, serves a purpose that shapes the overall story. Through their decisions, relationships, and transformations, the narrative explores themes of independence, responsibility, empathy, and forgiveness, all while maintaining a playful tone that keeps audiences entertained. At the center of it all is Kevin McCallister, who once again finds himself accidentally separated from his family, this time in the heart of New York City. In the first film, Kevin's arc was about overcoming fear, learning to fend for himself, and realizing the value of family after wishing them away. In Home Alone 2, however, Kevin's journey becomes more layered. When he first lands in New York with his father's bag and credit card, his motivations are simple: freedom, fun, and adventure. He revels in the fantasy of independence, booking a luxury suite at the Plaza Hotel, ordering endless room service, and tricking the adults around him with his talkboy recorder. This version of Kevin is more confident and bolder than before, but he's also more reckless. However, the introduction of Duncan's toy chest and the threat posed by Harry and Marv forces Kevin to grow. Unlike the first movie, where his battle with the burglars was about survival, here Kevin actively chooses to fight for something bigger than himself, the store's charity money. His decision to risk his safety and go head-to-head with the sticky bandits represents a shift from self-centeredness to selflessness. This transformation culminates beautifully when Kevin shares one of Mr. Duncan's gifted turtle doves with the Pigeon Lady, a symbolic gesture showing his understanding of compassion, trust, and connection. Harry and Marv return as the antagonists, but their roles are more exaggerated and comical this time, which adds energy to the story. While they don't evolve as characters, their flatness serves an important purpose. They act as constant forces of chaos and greed, making Kevin's growth stand out even more. Harry, played by Joe Pesci, brings sharp cunning and a short temper, while Marv, portrayed by Daniel Stern, leans into pure foolishness and physical comedy. Their dynamic together creates endless hilarious situations, especially when Kevin sets up his booby-trapped battleground inside his uncle's abandoned townhouse. Every failed scheme and painful mishap highlights Kevin's brilliance while keeping the danger lighthearted and fun. By turning the sticky bandits into walking cartoon characters, ambitious yet utterly incompetent, the film allows Kevin's victories to feel satisfying while maintaining its comedic tone. One of the most emotional arcs belongs to the Pigeon Lady, one of the film's most memorable and symbolic characters. Initially portrayed as a mysterious and somewhat frightening figure, she becomes a vital part of Kevin's emotional journey. Their first encounter plays into Kevin's lingering fears from the first film. He judges her by her appearance and avoids her. But when he eventually talks to her, Kevin learns about her past heartbreak and loneliness, and this changes his perspective. The Pigeon Lady's story resonates deeply because she represents themes of second chances and human connection. Through her, Kevin learns that people aren't always what they seem, and that kindness and understanding can build unlikely friendships. In return, Kevin's gift of one turtle dove to her near the film's end is one of the most heartfelt payoffs in the movie, symbolizing trust, gratitude, and lasting bonds. Her climactic rescue of Kevin in Central Park, where she uses her pigeons to foil Harry and Marv, becomes more than just an action beat. It's the emotional result of a friendship built on compassion and mutual respect. Kate McCallister, Kevin's mother, also gets a subtle but important development arc. While she spends most of the film searching frantically for her son, her journey reflects the deepening of her emotional connection with him. In the first film, Kate's role was reactive. She panicked, negotiated, and scrambled to return home, often relying on others for help. In Home Alone 2, we see a more determined, self-reliant version of Kate as she navigates New York on her own, chasing down leads until she finally finds Kevin. The reunion scene under the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree is one of the most touching moments in the film, symbolizing forgiveness, unconditional love, and the power of family bonds. Through Kate's story, the movie emphasizes the lengths a parent will go to protect and reconnect with their child, adding emotional weight to an otherwise comedy-driven narrative. Mr. Duncan, the kind-hearted toy store owner, serves as a quiet but powerful influence on Kevin's growth. His generosity and dedication to helping less fortunate children plant the seed that inspires Kevin's selfless actions later in the film. Though his screen time is limited, his role shapes the heart of the story and contrasts beautifully with the greed-driven antics of Harry and Marv. He embodies the true spirit of Christmas and provides Kevin with a sense of purpose beyond his personal adventure. The supporting characters around Kevin help amplify the comedy and conflict. Buzz continues his role as the classic older brother bully, providing the catalyst for Kevin's initial resentment and desire for independence. Uncle Frank, with his stingy and selfish personality, adds humor while highlighting the McCallister family's chaos. The Plaza Hotel staff, led by the overly suspicious concierge played by Tim Curry, introduce one of the movie's funniest subplots as Kevin cleverly outsmarts them again and again. While these characters remain mostly static, their exaggerated traits enrich the tone of the movie and give Kevin opportunities to demonstrate his resourcefulness and wit. What makes the character development in Home Alone 2 so effective is how relationships drive the narrative. Kevin's battles with Harry and Marv showcase his intelligence, but his bond with the Pigeon Lady reveals his compassion. His interactions with Mr. Duncan inspire his sense of responsibility, while his reunion with his mother reminds us of the importance of family connection. Each of these relationships shapes Kevin's choices and forces him to grow in ways that feel natural and emotionally satisfying. Even though many characters remain comedic archetypes, Kevin's evolution, combined with the emotional beats surrounding the Pigeon Lady and Kate, gives the film unexpected depth beneath its playful surface. The performances elevate the writing and make these arcs believable. Macaulay Culkin brings charm, wit, and vulnerability to Kevin, balancing his mischievous side with his growing maturity. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern commit fully to physical comedy, making the sticky bandits' constant failures hilarious instead of repetitive. Catherine O'Hara adds warmth and urgency to Kate's role, making her reunion with Kevin feel earned and heartfelt. Brenda Fricker, who portrays the Pigeon Lady, delivers a quiet dignity that turns a supporting character into one of the film's emotional anchors. The performances in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York are one of the biggest reasons the movie became an enduring holiday classic. It's not just the clever traps or the gorgeous New York setting that make the film memorable, it's the actors who breathe life into these characters and make every laugh, every emotional beat, and every chaotic twist feel earned. From the lead role to the smallest supporting parts, the cast commits fully to the story's heightened tone, balancing outrageous slapstick comedy with genuine warmth and heart. Each performance works in harmony to create a movie that feels alive, funny, and surprisingly touching, even decades later. At the very center of it all is Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McCallister, and his performance is nothing short of iconic. At just 12 years old, Culkin shows an incredible command of timing, charisma, and emotional nuance that elevates the entire movie. He carries nearly every scene, but he never feels forced or unnatural. In the comedic moments, Culkin demonstrates a gift for subtle expressions, a sly smirk here, a raised eyebrow there, that make Kevin's clever tricks and witty one-liners believable. His mastery of physicality also stands out. Whether he's sprinting through Central Park, diving under hotel beds, or confidently striding into the Plaza Hotel with his Talkboy recorder, Culkin makes Kevin feel resourceful and fearless. Yet, what truly anchors his performance is the emotional depth he brings. Kevin isn't just a mischievous kid setting traps. Culkin shows us his loneliness, his longing for independence, and his gradual understanding of empathy. The scenes with the Pigeon Lady and Mr. Duncan, where Kevin's vulnerability peeks through, wouldn't resonate nearly as deeply without Culkin's ability to switch effortlessly between playful charm and heartfelt sincerity. On the other end of the spectrum, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern return as Harry and Marv, the sticky bandits, and deliver performances that are pure comedic gold. Pesci, with his fiery energy, unpredictable temper, and sharp delivery, perfectly embodies Harry's dangerous edge while still leaning into absurdity. His gruff muttering, endless frustration, and constant underestimation of Kevin give the character a hilarious mix of menace and incompetence. Stern, as Marv, is the ideal counterbalance. Where Pesci is quick, reactive, and calculating, Stern leans fully into physical comedy and wide-eyed foolishness. His exaggerated expressions, over-the-top screams, and clumsy body language make him one of the movie's standout comedic forces. Together, Pesci and Stern create a rhythm that's nearly flawless. Their chemistry makes every gag funnier, the timing of their pratfalls, the way they bounce dialogue off each other, and their total willingness to humiliate themselves physically add up to some of the most unforgettable slapstick scenes in film history. Whether it's bricks crashing down on Marv's head, Harry's scalp getting torched, or their pigeon-filled takedown in Central Park, their total commitment to the pain-driven comedy is what makes these moments endlessly rewatchable. Then there's Catherine O'Hara as Kate McCallister, Kevin's mother, whose performance adds a layer of emotional grounding to balance the chaos. O'Hara captures the heartbreak, frustration, and determination of a parent who will stop at nothing to reunite with her child. Her comedic timing shines in her frantic exchanges with strangers and authority figures, but it's her sincerity that leaves the greatest impact. When she finally finds Kevin under the towering Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, the look of relief and love on her face gives the film one of its most heartwarming and iconic moments. Without O'Hara, the emotional stakes wouldn't feel nearly as authentic, and the movie's reunion wouldn't have the same power. Brenda Fricker's Pigeon Lady delivers one of the most understated yet unforgettable performances in the film. At first, her character is introduced as mysterious and unsettling, and Fricker perfectly plays into that aura without overacting. But as the story unfolds, she brings warmth, quiet strength, and gentle vulnerability to the role, transforming her from a scary stranger into one of Kevin's most important allies. In her scenes with Culkin, Fricker radiates empathy and kindness, giving the movie emotional depth and a symbolic heartbeat. The bond they form feels natural and believable, and her heroic moment during the climax, when she uses her pigeons to trap Harry and Marv, becomes even more satisfying because of the layered performance she delivers earlier in the film. Tim Curry as Mr. Hector, the Plaza Hotel's suspicious concierge, is another performance that elevates the movie. Curry brings theatricality and charm to every scene he's in, infusing his character with just the right mix of snootiness, cunning, and flamboyance. His over-the-top reactions when Kevin repeatedly outsmarts him are some of the movie's most memorable comedic highlights. Curry plays Mr. Hector as both a legitimate obstacle for Kevin and a source of playful tension, adding depth to the Plaza Hotel subplot without ever overshadowing the main story. His ability to switch from fake politeness to villainous scheming in a single glance makes him an absolute scene stealer. The supporting cast also deserves praise for creating a believable and lively world around Kevin. John Hurd as Peter McCallister grounds the family chaos with his calm, collected fatherly energy, while Devin Rotroy as Buzz embodies the classic older brother archetype perfectly, his smug attitude instantly making audiences understand Kevin's frustrations. Rob Schneider as Cedric, the bumbling bellhop, delivers understated yet hilarious comedic beats opposite Tim Curry, giving the Plaza scenes extra charm. Uncle Frank, played by Jerry Bandman, is unforgettable in his stingy, sarcastic role, adding a layer of dysfunctional humor to the McCallister family dynamic. What makes the performances in Home Alone 2 truly special is how seamlessly they balance heightened comedy with genuine emotion. Every actor commits fully to the film's playful tone, but no one treats the material as disposable. Culkin's charisma and emotional depth hold the story together. Pesci and Stern elevate the slapstick into masterful physical comedy. O'Hara brings tenderness and urgency. Fricker adds heart and hope. Curry injects theatrical humor, and the ensemble fills the movie with texture and personality. This harmony between leads and supporting players keeps the movie feeling dynamic and alive, making the comedy sharper and the emotional moments more impactful. Do you want me to create that next? Chris Columbus's direction in Home Alone 2. Lost in New York isn't just about telling a holiday story. It's about orchestrating a carefully balanced symphony of comedy, heart, and spectacle where every frame, sound, and movement works toward making the audience feel immersed in Kevin McCallister's chaotic yet magical adventure. Unlike many sequels that simply replicate the beats of the original, Columbus understands that to make this film stand out, he has to take everything that worked in Home Alone and amplify it without losing the charm and emotional grounding that made the first movie beloved. From the very beginning, his direction sets the tone with precision. The chaotic McCallister household, the missed flight, and Kevin's accidental diversion to New York are staged with dynamic camera movement and tight editing that drop us right into the whirlwind of holiday madness. But then Columbus shifts gears, slowing the pacing to allow the magic of Kevin's new playground, the vast, glittering streets of New York City, to breathe. Through sweeping crane shots, gentle tracking, and low angles, the city isn't just a backdrop. It becomes a character, an enchanting yet intimidating maze where Kevin's imagination, resourcefulness, and courage can be tested. Columbus also shows masterful control over tonal transitions. One moment, we're laughing hysterically at slapstick gags, and the next, we're quietly moved by scenes like Kevin bonding with the Pigeon Lady in Central Park. That emotional balance is one of his greatest strengths. He ensures that while the film leans heavily on comedy, it never loses its warmth or its humanity. The toy store sequence at Duncan's toy chest, for example, is handled with almost childlike awe. The production design, coupled with Columbus's choice of lingering, patient shots, invites the audience to rediscover childhood wonder alongside Kevin. Then, without missing a beat, he pivots into tension and chaos when Harry and Marv return, raising the stakes by weaving in longer takes, quick pans, and rapid-fire edits that heighten suspense without abandoning fun. Columbus knows exactly when to lean into silence, when to let music take over, and when to let the actors' reactions drive the scene. His approach to physical comedy is meticulous and almost mathematical. The elaborate booby traps at Uncle Rob's brownstone aren't just random moments of chaos. They're staged like a visual ballet of pain and timing. Columbus uses wide-angle framing to let audiences see the entire setup of Kevin's traps, ensuring we understand the geography before chaos unfolds. Then he switches to medium shots and close-ups to capture the expressions of Harry, Marv, and Kevin, making each scream, stumble, and pratfall land harder. He also maintains continuity of action, using slow builds and delayed punchlines so that each gag feels earned rather than rushed. These sequences, though comedic, are shot with the precision of an action thriller, giving the audience both tension and release. The way Columbus directs performances is equally crucial to the film's success. With Macaulay Culkin, he strikes the perfect balance between mischievous confidence and genuine vulnerability. Under his guidance, Culkin delivers a performance that feels authentic and effortlessly charming, letting Kevin's wit shine without making him seem unrelatable or overly clever for his age. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern's portrayals of Harry and Marv are heightened under Columbus's direction, creating a near-perfect comedic duo. Pesci leans into sharp, simmering menace, while Stern embraces unfiltered physicality and exaggerated reactions, and Columbus lets them push just far enough into absurdity without ever breaking believability. He also gives space for smaller performances to resonate. Catherine O'Hara's desperate yet tender portrayal of Kevin's mother, Brenda Fricker's quiet dignity and warmth as the Pigeon Lady, and Tim Curry's perfectly theatrical villainy as the Plaza concierge. By guiding each actor to hit specific emotional notes, Columbus ensures that even supporting characters feel layered and memorable. What really elevates Columbus's direction, though, is his attention to thematic undercurrents. On the surface, Home Alone 2 is a family comedy about slapstick and chaos, but Columbus subtly builds in deeper threads: loneliness, forgiveness, generosity, and belonging. The recurring motif of the turtle doves, revealed through careful close-ups and quiet dialogue, ties Kevin's journey to themes of connection and empathy. He uses visual storytelling to reinforce these ideas. The wide shots of Kevin wandering Central Park emphasize his isolation, while the warm lighting and framing in the toy store symbolize hope and kindness. This blend of narrative and visual design allows Columbus to give emotional resonance to a film that could have been purely comedic. From a technical standpoint, Columbus demonstrates extraordinary control over the film's rhythm and energy. His use of tracking shots and sweeping pans make New York feel alive and bustling, while carefully timed cross-cutting between Kevin's escapades and his family's frantic search builds tension and anticipation. He collaborates seamlessly with cinematographer Julio Mackett to create visual contrast: bright, glowing interiors for moments of comfort and magic, and cooler, shadowed exteriors for tension and danger. John Williams' legendary score becomes an extension of Columbus's direction, perfectly synchronized to emotional beats, lifting moments of wonder, punctuating Kevin's clever victories, and deepening moments of vulnerability. Columbus integrates sound design into the comedic timing too. The exaggerated crunches, thuds, and metallic clangs during the trap sequences feel deliberate, ensuring every impact lands in harmony with the visual rhythm. Chris Columbus doesn't just direct Home Alone 2, he conducts it. Every visual choice, performance note, edit, and sound cue is carefully calibrated to deliver a layered experience where humor, heart, and adventure coexist. He treats the audience as active participants, letting us feel the danger, delight in Kevin's cleverness, and immerse ourselves in the spectacle of New York during Christmas. By blending precise comedic timing, heartfelt storytelling, and technical finesse, Columbus creates a sequel that isn't just bigger than the original, but also more emotionally expansive. It's a film where the director's vision permeates every detail, turning chaos into choreography, humor into heart, and a simple holiday misadventure into a timeless cinematic experience. Do you want me to do that? The cinematography of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York isn't just functional, it's one of the main reasons the film feels magical, adventurous, and endlessly rewatchable. Director of photography Julio Macat approaches the sequel with a far more ambitious visual style than the first film, and it shows in the way every frame expands Kevin's world while capturing the charm, chaos, and contradictions of New York City. From the very first shot, you can sense the intention. The camera doesn't just observe the story, it participates in it. Every angle, every movement, every framing choice feels carefully calibrated to keep us locked into Kevin's perspective while allowing the city to become a living, breathing character in its own right. One of the film's smartest visual tricks is its child's eye framing. Kevin isn't just the protagonist, he's the lens through which we experience this entire adventure. Low angles dominate when we're with him, making towering hotel lobbies, skyscrapers, and Central Park trees appear even grander and more imposing. New York looks larger than life because, to a 10-year-old, it is. Yet in key moments, Macat pulls back into wide, establishing shots that swallow Kevin in the enormity of the city, instantly shifting the emotional tone from empowerment to vulnerability. For example, when Kevin first steps into Times Square, the bustling lights, swarming crowds, and restless taxis fill the entire frame, while Kevin is just a small, isolated figure navigating it all. It's visual storytelling at its finest, no dialogue needed. Lighting is another subtle but powerful tool that shapes the mood across scenes. Interiors tied to safety, warmth, and childhood wonder, like Duncan's toy chest, Kevin's lavish plaza suite, or the holiday-decked storefronts, are bathed in golden, high-key lighting. These warm tones instantly evoke comfort and magic, making you feel like you've stepped inside a holiday postcard. In contrast, the exterior night sequences, especially those in Central Park, use colder tones, deep shadows, and pockets of low lighting to create mystery, tension, and just a hint of danger. When Kevin first meets the Pigeon Lady, the subdued lighting, gentle mist, and muted palette create an eerie yet intimate feeling, drawing you into her quiet, tragic world before her story unfolds. The camera movement throughout the film is dynamic but deliberate, adapting seamlessly to the shifting tone between comedy, suspense, and heartfelt emotion. In chase sequences, like Kevin dodging hotel staff down the plaza's marble corridors, the cinematography employs tracking shots, whip pans, and fluid dolly moves to keep the energy high and the geography clear. You always know exactly where everyone is, which enhances the comedic payoff when chaos erupts. Conversely, in the slower, more emotional moments, the camera lingers in steadier, more contemplative framings. When Kevin exchanges the turtle doves with Mr. Duncan, the stillness of the shot mirrors the tenderness of the scene, letting the moment breathe rather than rushing through it. One of the hallmarks of the film's cinematography is its trap sequences in the abandoned townhouse. These are essentially mini-action set pieces where the visuals do half the storytelling. Unlike many slapstick comedies, the chaos is carefully choreographed to ensure that every trap has its own setup, anticipation, and punchline. Wide-angle establishing shots clearly map out the room and the trap's components, so when the action kicks in, the audience always understands the mechanics. Close-ups then isolate key reactions, the fear, the pain, the disbelief on Harry and Marv's faces, while medium shots capture the resulting physical gags. The pain can gag, the ladder collapse, the tool chest sequence tumbling down the stairs. Each moment lands because the camera anticipates where the audience is I will go next. The rhythm between setups and payoffs feels almost musical. Depth of field also plays a surprising role in shaping the film's emotional language. In many scenes, selective focus isolates Kevin or small objects, the talkboy recorder, the credit card, the turtle doves, to give them narrative weight, almost as if we're seeing the world through his curious, detail-oriented mind. Conversely, Wide shots with deep focus are reserved for moments of chaos, where multiple actions unfold at once. The bustling plaza lobby, the toy store break-in, or the elaborate trap sequences where every element in the frame carries comedic or dramatic information. This clever shifting of focus ensures the audience always feels grounded in the right emotional beat, whether the story calls for intimacy or spectacle. New York itself becomes a visual character thanks to the cinematography's use of natural light and real locations. The grandeur of the Plaza Hotel, the magic of Rockefeller Center, the wintry expanse of Central Park, and the chaos of Midtown streets are all captured with authenticity and scale. The movie doesn't flatten the city into a backdrop. Instead, it leans into its contrasts. At one moment, the camera drinks in the rich architectural detail of the plaza's gold-trimmed ceilings with slow, elegant pans, and at the next, it's sweeping through neon-soaked streets bursting with taxis and street vendors. This blend of visual opulence and grounded realism makes the film feel immersive, like Kevin's adventure is unfolding in a living, breathing world. There are several iconic visual moments that stick with you long after the movie ends. Kevin walking alone through the snow-covered streets, dwarfed by the towering skyscrapers. The first grand reveal of Duncan's toy chest with its floor-to-ceiling shelves of shimmering toys, framed to feel endless and dreamlike. The haunting, pigeon-filled standoff in Central Park, where feathers swirl in the cold air and the movement of the camera mirrors the chaos around Harry and Marv. And of course, the plaza lobby sequences, where reflective marble floors, cascading staircases, and bright holiday lights create an opulent playground for both comedy and suspense. What makes the cinematography of Home Alone 2 stand out is its precision in balancing tones. It doesn't just make the film look good, it helps tell the story. The visuals move fluidly between childlike wonder, slapstick chaos, emotional intimacy, and genuine tension, often within the same sequence. It understands that this is a film about a boy who's simultaneously clever, frightened, playful, and resourceful, and the camera treats those shifting moods with respect. It's warm when it needs to feel magical, cold when it needs to feel dangerous, and kinetic when it needs to feel thrilling. Do you want me to prepare that? The editing and pacing of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York are essential to why the film works so effectively, because they don't just string scenes together. They create energy, rhythm, and emotional balance in a way that keeps viewers constantly entertained while also emotionally invested. The editors, Raja Gosnell and his team, approach the movie like a dynamic orchestra conductor, shifting between fast, chaotic crescendos and slower, heartfelt interludes with remarkable precision. From the very start, the editing sets the tone in the airport sequence, which is designed to be overwhelming yet readable. Quick cuts, overlapping dialogue, and a flurry of close-ups capture the frantic chaos of the McCallister family racing through the terminal, and yet, despite the apparent pandemonium, the sequence maintains perfect visual clarity. You always know where Kevin is, where his family is, and why the inevitable separation is about to happen. This is editing that works like storytelling, not just assembly, using tempo to mirror emotional stakes. Once Kevin lands in New York, the pacing deliberately shifts, reflecting his sense of wonder and independence. The editors allow the camera to linger on his reactions, creating longer takes and slower transitions when he's first exploring the city, entering the Plaza Hotel, or walking down Fifth Avenue. These sequences breathe, giving the audience time to feel the scale of the city through Kevin's eyes. But that same breathing room also sets up contrasts, because when we cut to the Wet Bandits introduction, the newly minted Sticky Bandits, the tempo snaps faster, with quick exchanges, reaction shots, and tighter cuts to emphasize their manic energy. This alternating rhythm between wonder and tension creates a playful tug-of-war between the magical fantasy of Kevin's New York adventure and the looming threat of Harry and Marv's chaotic schemes. One of the film's strongest editing achievements lies in how it balances multiple narrative threads without losing momentum. Kevin's escapades in the plaza, his emotional interactions with the Pigeon Lady, the Duncan's toy chest storyline, and the family's desperate search for him all weave together seamlessly thanks to smart cross-cutting. The editors know when to let a comedic moment stretch, like Kevin outsmarting the hotel staff with his talkboy recording, and when to cut quickly to inject urgency, such as Kate McCallister's frantic journey through the city. These switches in rhythm make the movie feel expansive, but never disjointed, pulling the viewer smoothly across locations, tones, and character arcs without breaking immersion. Nowhere is the editing's brilliance more apparent than in the townhouse trap sequence, which functions like a masterclass in comedic timing and spatial clarity. These scenes are built on choreography, and the cuts are perfectly measured to maximize impact. The editors establish wide shots to map out the geography of Kevin's traps, ensuring the audience always knows where everything is placed and where Harry and Marv are in relation to danger. Then, as the action begins, the rhythm tightens, close-ups on mechanisms snapping into place, quick inserts of Kevin's determined expressions, medium shots on the bandits approaching, and finally, the payoff, a perfectly timed cut just before an impact to heighten anticipation, followed by a reaction shot to sell the pain and amplify the comedy. The duration of each shot is carefully calculated. The editors often hold just a split second longer than expected, stretching the tension so the eventual chaos lands harder. This sequencing allows every gag to escalate naturally rather than feeling rushed or repetitive, keeping the audience laughing while staying fully oriented in the action. The sound editing is also inseparable from the pacing. John Williams' score isn't just layered on top, it's woven into the rhythm of the cuts, with musical crescendos often syncing perfectly with transitions or comedic beats. During trap sequences, you hear crashes, thuds, creaks, and screams edited in sharp bursts to match the visual tempo, creating a harmony between sound and image that magnifies the humor. Conversely, during quieter emotional moments, like Kevin's conversations with the Pigeon Lady or Mr. Duncan, the editors pull back almost entirely on cuts and let Williams' softer melodies fill the gaps, creating a sense of stillness and intimacy that contrasts beautifully with the chaos elsewhere. Even transitions between tones, arguably one of the hardest challenges for editors in a film like this, are handled with care. After an extended slapstick sequence, the movie often slows down with gentle fades or lingering shots to allow the audience to reset emotionally. For example, after Kevin's trap-filled victory, the pacing shifts into a calm, magical reunion under the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, where long, unbroken takes and soft dissolves guide the viewer into a completely different emotional register without it feeling abrupt. This seamless modulation of energy is what keeps the film engaging for its entire runtime, despite juggling multiple tones, storylines, and locations. Overall, the editing in Home Alone 2 acts as an invisible storyteller, shaping the emotional and comedic rhythm scene by scene. It balances chaotic slapstick with moments of genuine heart, blends fantasy with tension, and guides the viewer through Kevin's adventure with precision and clarity. Every cut, transition, and pacing choice is intentional, whether it's racing through an airport, lingering on a toy store wonderland, or timing a brick perfectly to Harry's head. The editors understand that comedy lives in timing, emotion lives in patience, and storytelling thrives when both are balanced. This mastery of rhythm ensures that the audience is never overwhelmed, never bored, and always immersed, making the film a constant interplay of anticipation, release, and reward. The soundtrack and score of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, are not just a background layer. They act like an invisible storyteller that constantly guides the audience's emotions, builds anticipation, and shapes the atmosphere in ways you might not even consciously notice. Composed by the legendary John Williams, the music has an extraordinary range, shifting effortlessly between playful mischief, heartfelt tenderness, and holiday magic while keeping a tonal consistency that makes the entire experience feel cohesive and rich. What's brilliant about Williams' approach is how he uses recurring motifs and themes, adapting them to match the shifting emotional temperature of each scene so that the score feels alive and reactive rather than static. One of the most recognizable pieces, Somewhere in My Memory, functions as the emotional heart of the film. You hear variations of this theme throughout, from full orchestral swells layered with choir during the most magical Christmas moments to softer, almost whisper-like versions played on piano or strings when Kevin feels homesick or alone in the big city. This constant reworking of the same musical identity creates a deep emotional connection between the audience and Kevin's journey. The theme carries not just nostalgia for family, but also a sense of longing, belonging, and discovery. It's the glue that ties together the humor, danger, and warmth without ever feeling intrusive or overbearing. Then comes the playful side of the score, the part that gives Kevin's pranks and booby traps their iconic energy. Williams doesn't rely on generic, funny music. Instead, he crafts precise, synchronized rhythmic patterns with pizzicato strings, fluttering woodwinds, and sharp brass hits that perfectly match the timing of each trap. When Marv slips, when Harry gets hit, or when paint cans swing, the musical accents drop right on cue, amplifying the physical comedy and making the gags more impactful. What's even smarter is how Williams balances score and sound effects. He often lets moments of silence interrupt the music, giving space for the thud of a fall, the clang of a tool, or Marv's iconic scream. That deliberate restraint makes the comedic beats land harder than they would with constant background noise. But the soundtrack isn't just about laughs. It's also about expanding the emotional range of the story. For example, the sequences with the Pigeon Lady are scored with stripped-down, hauntingly gentle instrumentation, usually soft piano notes, muted strings, or delicate woodwinds. These cues immediately shift the emotional tone, inviting the audience into her quiet world of isolation and pain. Without a single word, the music tells us everything we need to know about her character, making her eventual bond with Kevin feel deeply authentic and earned. This is Williams' genius, using music not just to support emotion but to create it. The New York City setting itself also gets a musical personality. In contrast to the cozy suburban tones of the first film, the score incorporates grander orchestral gestures, making the city feel larger than life and full of possibilities. In scenes like Kevin's first walk through bustling Manhattan or his entrance into the Plaza Hotel, the music swells with brightness and adventure, letting the audience experience the awe Kevin feels. At the same time, Williams doesn't shy away from darker undertones when danger creeps in. The moments where Harry and Marv plot, or when Kevin finds himself lost and frightened, feature deeper string sections and tense, pulsing rhythms that subtly raise the stakes without feeling heavy-handed. Another clever aspect of the score is its relationship with Christmas music. Williams seamlessly blends his original compositions with traditional carols and seasonal melodies, grounding the film in its holiday spirit. Instead of feeling like two competing soundscapes, these elements merge naturally. Sometimes the score hints at familiar tunes within its orchestration, weaving recognizable fragments into its original themes. This technique enhances the film's festive energy and nostalgia without leaning too heavily on cliches. Technically, the sound editing and integration of the score are flawless. Every cue is meticulously timed to the film's pacing, accentuating emotional peaks and giving space where silence carries more weight. In fast-paced sequences, the music mirrors the rhythm of the cuts, pulling the audience forward with momentum. In slower, reflective moments, the score lingers and breathes, allowing the audience to settle into Kevin's emotional state. This dynamic relationship between music, editing, and storytelling gives the film a layered rhythm that keeps viewers engaged without feeling overwhelmed. The highlights are endless. The angelic choir rising inside Duncan's toy chest when Kevin stares up at the towering displays of toys, the warm instrumental textures during the Christmas Eve montage, the mischievous bursts of woodwinds when Kevin devises his elaborate hotel tricks, and the triumphant orchestral payoff when he finally outsmarts Harry and Marv for good. Each of these musical choices not only underscores what's happening visually, but deepens our connection to the story. What makes the soundtrack of Home Alone 2 so special is how it balances contrasts, big and small, loud and quiet, playful and heartfelt. John Williams creates a soundscape where laughter, tension, magic, and nostalgia coexist seamlessly. Without the score, the film would still be funny and clever, but with it, the entire experience feels alive, emotional, and unforgettable. Home Alone 2. Lost in New York might present itself as a lighthearted holiday comedy filled with slapstick chaos, laugh-out-loud moments, and outrageous traps. But beneath all that fun lies a surprisingly rich tapestry of themes and messages woven throughout the film. At its core, the movie explores the idea of growing up and taking responsibility, and it cleverly mirrors Kevin's personal journey against the backdrop of a city that embodies both freedom and danger. In the beginning, Kevin craves independence. After yet another argument with his family, he gets separated from them and winds up in New York City with his father's credit card, suddenly free to live out every child's dream: luxury hotel stays, room service feasts, toy store shopping sprees, and the thrill of being completely in charge. But the film doesn't present this freedom as pure wish fulfillment. Instead, it gradually introduces challenges and moral tests that force Kevin to realize that true independence comes with responsibility. His decision to save Duncan's toy chest from Harry and Marv's robbery marks a turning point in his character, showing how his choices evolve from self-serving adventures to selfless actions. Another key theme threaded into the story is loneliness versus connection. New York City, with its glittering lights and towering buildings, is portrayed both as an enchanting playground and an overwhelming wilderness. Kevin enjoys the perks of his independence at first, but as the movie progresses, he begins to feel the weight of isolation. The emotional heart of this theme comes alive in his interaction with the Pigeon Lady. Initially frightened by her appearance, Kevin overcomes his assumptions and learns her story, discovering that she too has suffered loneliness and heartbreak. Through their friendship, the film subtly teaches the audience about empathy, understanding, and seeing beyond appearances. The gift of the turtle dove ornaments becomes a symbolic moment, representing trust, connection, and the importance of keeping meaningful relationships alive even after parting ways. Generosity versus greed is another central thread running throughout the movie. Mr. Duncan, the warm-hearted owner of Duncan's toy chest, donates his profits to a children's hospital, embodying kindness and community spirit. In sharp contrast, Harry and Marv represent selfishness and opportunism, seeking to rob the very store meant to help children in need. Kevin's decision to risk his safety and stop the burglary reframes his playful traps into acts of bravery rather than just mischievous fun. This contrast between giving and taking is cleverly staged against the backdrop of New York's holiday season, where consumerism often overshadows the true meaning of Christmas. By placing Kevin at the center of this moral crossroads, the film subtly nudges audiences to reflect on the value of compassion over materialism. Prejudice and perception are also explored through secondary characters, most notably with the Pigeon Lady. The film uses her introduction as a classic trope, an ominous figure lurking in the shadows of Central Park, but quickly subverts expectations by revealing her vulnerability and kindness. Kevin's willingness to look past her appearance becomes one of the movie's most meaningful lessons. People are rarely what they seem on the surface, and small gestures of trust can heal old wounds. Similarly, Mr. Duncan's quiet generosity contrasts with the extravagance of the Plaza Hotel, showing that true wealth lies in giving, not flaunting. The movie also cleverly touches on the meaning of home and belonging. Although Kevin spends much of the film exploring glamorous hotels, bustling streets, and elaborate toy stores, he ultimately learns that none of it compares to being with his family. The emotional reunion scene near the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center is more than just a heartwarming ending. It ties back to the recurring idea that home is not a physical space but a feeling of safety, love, and togetherness. The turtle doves given by Mr. Duncan further reinforce this, symbolizing enduring bonds and emotional connection rather than material possessions. Even the traps and chaos hold thematic weight. Kevin's booby traps against Harry and Marv aren't just comedic set pieces. They serve as expressions of creativity, resourcefulness, and courage. Yet, beneath the laughter, the film raises an unspoken tension about justice and vigilantism. Kevin's pranks border on dangerous, but because the thieves are portrayed as comically incompetent and malicious, the audience delights in their humiliation without questioning his extreme measures. This clever tonal balance allows the film to maintain its playful spirit while subtly hinting at deeper moral ambiguities. Home Alone 2 also flirts with themes of consumerism and privilege without becoming overly heavy-handed. Kevin's lavish stay at the Plaza Hotel, funded by his father's misplaced credit card, contrasts sharply with Mr. Duncan's charity and the modest lives of other characters. The film invites audiences to reflect on the tension between indulgence and generosity during the holiday season, but it does so through humor and charm rather than outright critique. Symbols are sprinkled throughout the film to reinforce its emotional layers. The top boy represents Kevin's growing independence and cleverness. The credit card symbolizes false adulthood and fleeting freedom. The turtle doves embody connection and kindness, and Duncan's toy chest stands as a beacon of hope and generosity amid the chaos. Each of these elements deepens the movie's themes without slowing down the pace or dampening its festive energy. Ultimately, Home Alone 2 disguises its messages within laughter, action, and holiday wonder, making them more impactful because they're felt rather than preached. It's a story about growing up without losing your sense of wonder, about finding empathy in unexpected places, and about realizing that family and kindness matter more than toys, hotels, or money. The film uses spectacle, humor, and heartfelt moments to create an experience where deeper ideas about love, generosity, loneliness, and belonging are seamlessly blended into its adventurous narrative, making it not only endlessly entertaining but also quietly meaningful for anyone willing to look beneath the surface. Home Alone 2. Lost in New York handles visual effects with an incredible balance of subtlety, craftsmanship, and cleverness, making it one of those rare films where you almost forget there are effects at all because the entire experience feels so tactile and real. Unlike modern comedies that lean heavily on computer-generated gags, this film thrives on its practical setups, in-camera tricks, and seamless integration of optical compositing, creating a world that feels authentic while still delivering over-the-top chaos. Every trap, every fall, and every outrageous stunt has been carefully engineered to create a perfect blend of danger, humor, and believability, which is why the audience connects so strongly with the pain, panic, and hilarity on screen. Take the iconic brick-throwing sequence, for example. Kevin hurls multiple bricks from a rooftop straight onto Marv's head, and the timing, framing, and sound design make it one of the most memorable slapstick gags in the entire franchise. There's no CGI brick. It's a combination of lightweight foam props, clever camera angles, and exaggerated sound effects that make the hits feel bone-crushing without actually harming the actors. You can practically feel the weight and impact because the visual cues, like Marv's stagger, his facial expression, and the delayed reaction, are grounded in real stunt work. This combination of practical effects with subtle enhancements is used throughout the movie, allowing physical comedy to dominate without ever seeming artificial or cartoonish. Another brilliant example is the booby-trapped townhouse sequence. This entire set was essentially designed as a playground for chaos, with doors rigged, paint cans swinging, wooden beams pivoting, and tools crashing. Every gag was rehearsed and blocked meticulously so the camera would always catch the perfect angle, the exact moment a ladder collapses, the split second a tool chest barrels down the stairs, or the fraction of a second before Harry and Marv collide with yet another disaster. These effects aren't just visual candy. They're narrative devices that enhance tension, deliver punchlines, and keep the audience engaged at every turn. Even outside the slapstick-heavy moments, the film relies on subtle visual effects to expand its world. For example, some New York skyline shots and snow-covered streets weren't always captured in perfect weather conditions, so the production used optical mattis, miniature models, and layered background plates to make the city look consistently magical and festive. Instead of replacing entire environments digitally, the filmmakers enhanced existing footage to maintain visual continuity, giving the film a warm, grounded atmosphere that modern CGI-heavy productions often lack. These enhancements also preserve the texture and natural lighting of real spaces, which makes the film visually timeless compared to later sequels that leaned more on obvious digital tools. The pigeon scene in Central Park is another prime example of visual ingenuity. You might assume it was all digital enhancement, but almost all of it relied on practical bird training combined with clever staging and fast cuts. The crew used real pigeons, coaxed them into coordinated movements, and occasionally composited multiple plates together to make the flock appear denser and more chaotic. The result is a sequence that feels alive, messy, and spontaneous, something CGI often struggles to capture with the same energy. Sound design also plays a massive role in making the effects land. Every trap is heightened by exaggerated, layered effects. The snap of ropes, the groan of wooden beams, the metallic clatter of falling tools, and of course, those signature bone-crunching impact sounds. Sometimes, silence is used just as effectively, with moments of quiet tension right before a major gag exploding into chaos. This combination of visuals and sound tricks the brain into believing in the danger, even when the props themselves are harmless. It's also worth noting how much the stunt work contributes to the believability of the effects. The actors, especially Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci, committed fully to physically demanding performances, but many of the wildest falls and most dangerous collisions were executed by stunt doubles and padded rigs, seamlessly hidden by careful framing and editing. By shooting with wider lenses when possible and avoiding excessive cutting, the film lets the audience see the action unfold, which sells the reality of every crash and tumble. Unlike today's digital-heavy filmmaking, Home Alone 2 thrives because it integrates effects into its storytelling rather than showcasing them for their own sake. The comedy lands harder because it feels grounded in a world where objects have weight, gravity matters, and consequences, however exaggerated, feel authentic. The magic of its visual effects is that they're almost invisible. They blend perfectly with the performances, the sets, and the cinematography to create a seamless, immersive experience. This is one of the key reasons the film holds up decades later. The craftsmanship behind every gag, background enhancement, and composited shot gives it a timeless quality that doesn't feel dated even in an era of hyper-polished digital filmmaking. The set design and locations in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, are not just functional backgrounds. They are an essential storytelling tool that creates the magic, charm, and visual identity of the entire film. From the glittering holiday streets of Manhattan to the lavish interiors of the Plaza Hotel and the eerily abandoned townhouse where the final showdown takes place, every single detail of the production design has been carefully crafted to transport the audience straight into Kevin's adventurous journey. The filmmakers knew they were making a sequel that had to feel bigger, bolder, and grander than the first film, and the way they used both real-world locations and meticulously built sets shows just how much thought and care went into creating a New York City that feels at once authentic and cinematic. One of the crown jewels of the movie's locations is, without a doubt, the Plaza Hotel. By securing access to one of the most iconic landmarks in New York, the filmmakers instantly elevated the grandeur of the film. From the ornate marble floors to the majestic chandeliers, the grand hallways, and the perfectly polished lobby, the plaza became more than just a location. It became a character in itself. What's remarkable is how the production team blended the real-world elegance of the hotel with clever set dressing to make it feel completely in sync with Kevin's mischievous adventures. Every corridor chase, elevator gag, and lobby confrontation was carefully blocked to maximize both comedic timing and visual storytelling, allowing the hotel to serve as the perfect playground for Kevin's resourceful schemes. The staff uniforms, the polished brass details, and even the positioning of props like luggage carts and service trays were intentionally designed to make the hotel feel vibrant and alive. It gives the audience a tangible sense of luxury, while keeping the setting relatable through Kevin's youthful perspective. Then there's Duncan's toy chest, one of the most memorable and enchanting sets in the entire film. Modeled to resemble a larger-than-life version of F.A.O. Schwartz, this location captures the magical wonder of childhood dreams. The production team couldn't rely on just one place, so they built custom interiors elsewhere, allowing for breathtaking sweeping shots, towering toy displays, and vibrant, colorful visuals. The entire layout was designed to place Kevin at the center of a child's fantasy world, giving him space to explore, hide, and interact with the toys in ways that perfectly mirrored his playful and curious nature. Every shelf, train track, teddy bear, and ornament was carefully arranged to create layers of visual detail, giving the audience the feeling that they, too, have stepped into a magical wonderland. The toy store doesn't just serve as a backdrop for Kevin's encounters with Mr. Duncan. It symbolizes generosity, innocence, and the spirit of Christmas, contrasting perfectly with the chaos caused by the wet bandits. The filmmakers also worked hard to make New York City itself feel like a living, breathing character. The movie treats Manhattan like Kevin's gigantic playground, weaving together iconic landmarks into a cinematic holiday postcard. From the dazzling Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center to the skating rink scenes, from bustling Fifth Avenue to the serene yet slightly haunting corners of Central Park, every exterior shot is framed to highlight the festive beauty of the city during the holidays. While the geographic layout of the city was sometimes rearranged for narrative convenience, it never feels disjointed. The production team prioritized emotional flow over accuracy, making Kevin's journey from one location to the next feel seamless and exciting. The snow-dusted sidewalks, festive window displays, and bright city lights add a layer of visual warmth, enhancing the film's cozy holiday atmosphere while still keeping that sense of adventure and danger alive. One of the most impressive aspects of the set design is how it seamlessly balances luxury, magic, and menace. On one end, we have spaces like the Plaza Hotel and Duncan's toy chest, which burst with color, texture, and holiday cheer. On the other end, the abandoned townhouse, the site of Kevin's elaborate trap sequence, offers a stark contrast. The production design here leans into raw realism. Exposed beams, broken windows, cracked walls, dusty staircases, and worn-down furniture. It perfectly sets the tone for the climactic showdown, giving the traps a sense of weight and danger while maintaining the playful energy of Kevin's creativity. Every loose plank, dangling rope, and unstable ladder was carefully chosen to enhance the physical comedy while keeping the danger believable. The house feels truly derelict yet completely functional for Kevin's pranks, making it the ultimate trap-laden battlefield. Props and set dressing also play a massive role in making the world feel real and immersive. From Kevin's Talkboy device, which became an instant pop culture phenomenon, to the perfectly placed room service trays, the detailed ornaments at Duncan's toy chest, and the holiday decorations scattered throughout every frame, there's a sense of thoughtfulness behind even the smallest items on screen. The production team understood that props weren't just accessories, they were storytelling tools. Kevin's interactions with these objects helped define his personality, his resourcefulness, and his clever problem-solving, while also immersing the audience deeper into his world. The genius of the film's set design lies in its ability to make audiences feel like they're on this journey with Kevin. The settings aren't static. They evolve with the story, reflecting shifting tones and emotions. The bright, bustling streets of New York represent freedom and exploration. The grand interiors of the plaza represent indulgence and luxury, but also danger as Kevin has to outsmart adults in power. The toy store embodies childlike wonder and kindness, while the abandoned house sets the stage for chaos and clever victory. Each location serves a purpose beyond aesthetics, deepening the emotional stakes while keeping the visual storytelling lively and fun. The blend of on-location filming, custom-built sets, and meticulous production design is what gives Home Alone 2 its timeless charm. By combining real-world authenticity with carefully crafted visual worlds, the filmmakers created a version of New York that feels both larger than life and grounded in reality. It's a city bursting with magic and mischief, perfectly tailored to Kevin's adventures and the spirit of the holidays. The dialogue and script of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, deserve far more credit than they often receive because beneath the slapstick chaos, the witty comebacks, and the cartoonish energy lies a carefully constructed screenplay that balances humor, heart, and adventure with remarkable precision. What makes the writing so effective is how seamlessly it switches tones, from laugh-out-loud moments to heartfelt beats, without ever feeling jarring. Every line of dialogue serves a clear purpose: to move the plot forward, deepen the characters, deliver a joke, or subtly reinforce the film's themes of family, forgiveness, and personal growth. The script never wastes words. Even the smallest exchanges add texture, foreshadow key events, or connect scenes in a way that keeps the pacing tight and the audience fully engaged. Kevin's dialogue is written with a distinct sharpness that sets him apart from every other character. Unlike many child protagonists who are overly precocious or unrealistically wise, Kevin's voice feels authentic, clever, and spontaneous, capturing exactly how an intelligent, mischievous kid would think and speak when left on his own. His witty one-liners, sarcastic remarks, and improvised strategies make him instantly likable, but what makes his dialogue special is its dual function. It's funny on the surface, yet it subtly reveals Kevin's evolving sense of independence and resourcefulness. Through his words, we see a boy who's still playful and curious, but also far more self-aware than in the first film, and the script uses this growth to create richer comedic setups and more emotional payoffs. On the other hand, the adult characters are written in broader strokes, with dialogue that highlights their personalities and flaws in exaggerated but memorable ways. Kate McCallister's frantic lines are filled with a mother's guilt and desperation, which adds weight to the stakes and reminds the audience of the emotional core beneath the comedy. Uncle Frank, meanwhile, gets some of the most hilariously stingy and sarcastic lines, functioning as the film's comedic counterweight to Kate's sincerity. Then there's the Plaza Hotel staff, whose exchanges with Kevin are a standout example of sharp comedic timing. The scene where Tim Curry's concierge interrogates Kevin about his stay is layered with verbal misdirection, sly insults, and mounting absurdity, culminating in perfectly scripted chaos when Kevin cleverly outsmarts them. The dialogue here demonstrates how the script uses Kevin's wit and the adult's arrogance to create memorable comedic tension without forcing the humor. One of the strengths of the screenplay lies in its mastery of setups and payoffs. The Top Boy recorder, for example, isn't just a fun gadget. It becomes a running joke, a problem-solving tool, and a plot-driving device all at once, and much of its effectiveness comes from the clever way dialogue is reused and recontextualized through the recordings. The same applies to recurring jokes like Kevin's credit card scheme, the Angels with even filthier souls movie quotes, and Harry and Marv's endless, ridiculous bickering. The writers weave these moments into the dialogue so naturally that they become both laugh triggers and narrative anchors, rewarding viewers who are paying close attention. The dialogue between Harry and Marv, now self-proclaimed as the Sticky Bandits, deserves its own mention because it demonstrates just how much personality can be packed into seemingly simple lines. Their exchanges are loaded with childish insults, overconfidence, and escalating frustration, and while their words might sound ridiculous, the rhythm of their banter is what makes their slapstick scenes land. Harry's short-tempered growls contrast perfectly with Marv's clueless optimism, creating a comedic duo whose dynamic depends heavily on verbal timing. In many scenes, their lines set up the gags before the chaos unfolds, giving the physical comedy more punch because the audience is primed by their words. But it's not just about jokes. The script also delivers some unexpectedly profound dialogue that balances out the comedy. The conversations between Kevin and the Pigeon Lady are especially well-crafted. Instead of dumping exposition, the writers allow Kevin to open up slowly, revealing his loneliness and fears through casual yet heartfelt exchanges. The Pigeon Lady's lines, meanwhile, are written with quiet poetry and vulnerability, turning what could have been a forgettable side character into one of the emotional pillars of the story. These dialogues aren't overly sentimental. They're restrained and intimate, which makes their impact much stronger. Kevin's simple reassurances to her and her reflections on trust add depth to the film's themes of compassion and second chances, grounding the story in genuine emotional weight. Even the minimalistic lines are purposeful. Kevin's short phrases, his muttered yes, after outsmarting someone, or his calm, confident threats toward Harry and Marv, carry power precisely because they're sparse. They're not trying to over-explain. They let his actions fill in the blanks, and that restraint keeps the character believable. Likewise, moments of silence are used strategically throughout the film, allowing expressions, reactions, and physical gags to take center stage without needing to clutter scenes with unnecessary dialogue. In a movie filled with chaotic energy, these quiet beats give the audience room to breathe and make the more emotional exchanges hit even harder. The script also thrives on distinctive character voices. You can identify who's speaking based purely on cadence, phrasing, and tone. Kevin's dialogue is playful and strategic. Kate's is frantic yet heartfelt. Harry and Marv are chaotic and snappy. The hotel staff are overly formal and theatrical, and Mr. Duncan speaks with soft warmth and generosity. This sharp differentiation makes the ensemble feel alive and dynamic, ensuring that even supporting characters are memorable because their words sound like an extension of their personalities rather than generic filler. Finally, the screenplay understands the importance of rhythm and timing. Lines are often structured like setups for visual punchlines, meaning the words aren't just funny. They build anticipation for the gag that follows. A sarcastic remark, an incredulous question, or an overly confident boast frequently leads directly into disaster, which makes the humor feel organic rather than forced. This interplay between dialogue and physical comedy is one of the reasons Home Alone 2 remains so rewatchable. The jokes land not just because of what's said, but because of when it's said and how it collides with what happens next. Overall, the dialogue and script of Home Alone 2 work on multiple levels at once. They create distinct, memorable voices for every character, blend comedy with heart, establish emotional stakes without ever slowing down the fun, and weave recurring motifs into conversations in a way that feels effortless. The writing drives the pacing, fuels the laughs, deepens the characters, and elevates the slapstick chaos into something smarter and more layered than it first appears. It's a screenplay that understands exactly when to talk, when to joke, when to connect, and when to stay silent, and that balance is what makes it so enduring. Home Alone 2. Lost in New York is a film that perfectly understands its genre, embraces its conventions, and yet cleverly refreshes them in ways that make the experience feel bigger, bolder, and unexpectedly richer. At its core, it's a family-friendly holiday comedy, but beneath that surface, it's also a heist movie, a slapstick extravaganza, a fish-out-of-water adventure, and a warm-hearted coming-of-age story rolled into one seamless package. The brilliance of its genre execution lies in how the filmmakers don't just repeat the winning formula from the first film but elevate it by placing Kevin McCallister in a grander setting, giving him higher stakes, sharper comedic setups, and deeper emotional arcs, all while keeping the tone light, festive, and endlessly entertaining. It knows what the audience came for: elaborate traps, hilarious pain for the villains, family drama, and Christmas magic, but it surprises you with little twists, layered themes, and a more adventurous scope that keeps it from feeling like a lazy sequel. On one hand, the movie leans confidently into the expectations of the comedy genre. The slapstick gags are outrageous, meticulously choreographed, and perfectly timed, a masterclass in controlled chaos. The booby traps are bigger, bolder, and much more inventive than in the first film. This time, Kevin isn't just defending his home. He's protecting a massive abandoned townhouse while simultaneously outsmarting the sticky bandits, Harry and Marv, in some of the funniest, most absurd sequences ever captured in a holiday film. The trap setups push the boundaries of cartoon physics while keeping the pain comically exaggerated, maintaining the delicate balance between danger and humor that defines the Home Alone identity. But where the movie could have simply copied its predecessor beat for beat, it freshens the formula by expanding the scale of everything. Instead of suburban coziness, Kevin is dropped into the chaotic wonderland of New York City, a concrete jungle full of opportunities, dangers, and pure cinematic magic. This setting itself acts as a character, amplifying tension and humor alike. From the sparkling charm of the Plaza Hotel to the mysterious quiet of Central Park at night, every location enhances the film's narrative energy and allows the genre to breathe in new directions. Where the film gets clever is in how it uses genre conventions but twists them to create emotional weight and surprising depth. In most holiday comedies, the scary stranger trope is used for cheap suspense or laughs, but here, the Pigeon Lady becomes one of the most heartfelt components of the film. Initially framed as eerie and unsettling, she transforms into a symbol of compassion, loneliness, and hope, subverting the audience's expectations and adding humanity to what could have been a simple comedic setup. Similarly, Mr. Duncan, the toy store owner, doesn't exist purely as a plot device, but as a representation of generosity and holiday spirit, contrasting sharply against the greed-driven schemes of Harry and Marv. Even Kevin's own journey gets a subtle upgrade in this sequel. Unlike in the first movie, where survival was his primary motivation, this time he chooses to take risks for the sake of others, standing up to protect Mr. Duncan's toy store from being robbed. It's no longer just about defending his own safety. It's about acting selflessly, giving his character arc a richer, more heroic dimension while still maintaining the mischievous, playful charm that defines him. Another fascinating aspect of the genre execution is how Home Alone 2 blends multiple tones without ever feeling disjointed. The film seamlessly merges laugh-out-loud comedy with genuine moments of emotional resonance, sprinkling in just enough suspense and drama to keep the audience fully invested. The physical humor with Harry and Marv is as over-the-top as ever. They take bricks to the face, get electrocuted, fall from heights that defy reality. But these exaggerated gags coexist alongside tender, intimate beats like Kevin connecting with the Pigeon Lady, Kate's desperate search for her son, and the quiet magic of reuniting with loved ones at Christmas. This balance gives the film staying power because it respects its audience. It trusts viewers to enjoy the chaos while still appreciating the heart beating beneath it. The humor never undermines the sincerity, and the sentimentality never becomes overly sweet, a tricky tightrope to walk but one the filmmakers handle beautifully. The movie also plays with action thriller tropes, using pacing and staging techniques that make some sequences feel like mini action set pieces. Kevin running through the city, avoiding the sticky bandits, and cleverly outmaneuvering adults twice his size injects tension and excitement into the comedic framework. The editing is crisp, the camera movements deliberate, and the New York skyline serves as a dynamic backdrop that keeps the visuals fresh and cinematic. While the traps themselves are inherently comedic, their execution borrows from action filmmaking, quick cuts, rising stakes, and escalating danger, blending genres in a way that enhances both tension and comedy simultaneously. Of course, the movie doesn't shy away from familiar holiday themes, the importance of family, forgiveness, generosity, and rediscovering the true meaning of Christmas, but it presents them with enough charm and heart to avoid feeling formulaic. Kevin's reunion with his mom carries emotional weight not just because it's expected, but because the journey there explores independence, courage, and empathy in ways the first film only hinted at. And through the Pigeon Lady story, the film gently reminds viewers that kindness, companionship, and understanding are just as central to the holiday spirit as the big reunions and grand gestures. What truly sets Home Alone 2 apart is its confidence. It knows its audience, respects their expectations, and delivers everything they loved about the first movie while giving them more traps, more laughs, more heart, and a grander sense of adventure. Its genre execution isn't revolutionary, but it's incredibly effective because it takes familiar ingredients and rearranges them into something that feels both nostalgic and fresh. It thrives on predictability where it matters. Kevin will outsmart the villains, Christmas spirit will triumph, but surprises you with emotional depth, elevated stakes, and inventive humor along the way. The result is a sequel that embraces its identity while proving there's still room for creativity, proving that sometimes leaning into genre conventions, when done thoughtfully, can produce something timeless, joyful, and endlessly rewatchable. Home Alone 2. Lost in New York might look like a simple, heartwarming Christmas comedy on the surface, but buried beneath its slapstick chaos and festive glitter is an entire layer of subtle, intentional, and sometimes contradictory social and cultural commentary. The film operates like a holiday postcard drenched in fantasy, yet it reflects certain anxieties, aspirations, and moral values of early 90s America without ever pausing to announce them. It's clever that way. The movie invites you to laugh at paint cans, marvel at holiday lights, and root for Kevin's elaborate booby traps. But if you start unpacking the themes running in the background, there's a surprisingly rich conversation happening about class, privilege, homelessness, authority, childhood autonomy, and even America's deepening obsession with consumer culture. It never tries to lecture the audience, but it does plant cultural signals everywhere, whether deliberately or accidentally, and that's what makes this movie more layered than it appears. Let's start with one of its loudest statements: consumerism and economic contrast. The film thrives on visual storytelling when it comes to wealth and status. The Plaza Hotel, with its grand staircases, gold-trimmed interiors, and over-the-top luxury, represents the glossy, aspirational version of holiday abundance. Kevin, armed with his father's credit card, gets swept into this fantasy of privilege, devouring room service, wearing plush robes, and living out a dream most kids could never imagine. But the movie cleverly counterbalances that with Duncan's toy chest, a magical yet morally grounded wonderland of generosity, where profits are donated to children's hospitals. It quietly positions two visions of wealth side by side, one rooted in indulgence, the other in charity. The messaging isn't subtle. The movie celebrates giving while still fully indulging the joy of material excess, inviting viewers to experience the rush of abundance while feeling morally reassured that kindness is the real holiday treasure. It's a clever balancing act where the audience gets to enjoy the fantasy guilt-free. Then there's the film's portrayal of homelessness and social empathy, embodied entirely by the Pigeon Lady. At first, she's treated as an urban ghost story, a shadowy figure lurking in Central Park, framed as scary because of her appearance and isolation. But once Kevin connects with her, the narrative pivots sharply into humanization, offering a sentimental portrayal of her backstory, heartbreak, and resilience. This creates one of the film's most emotionally powerful moments, reinforcing themes of compassion and second chances. However, the movie also simplifies a deeply complex social issue, resolving it with a quick, symbolic friendship rather than addressing systemic realities. Kevin's ability to save the Pigeon Lady with a single heartfelt gesture and a pair of turtle doves is sweet but idealized. It reassures viewers that personal kindness can fix homelessness without requiring structural solutions. That duality, the emotional sincerity versus the narrative simplification, reflects how early 90s family films often handled social issues, warmly, accessibly, but somewhat superficially. Authority, institutions, and adult competence, or rather, the lack thereof, form another layer of cultural commentary. From the hotel staff to airport security to the New York police, nearly every adult system that's supposed to ensure safety collapses into comic ineptitude. The Plaza Hotel, despite its opulence, becomes a playground where Kevin consistently outsmarts grown-ups like Mr. Hector and his team. The McCallister parents are again painted as well-meaning but absent-minded, losing Kevin for a second consecutive holiday, without much deeper reflection on parental accountability. Even law enforcement in New York barely registers in the chaos of Kevin running around unsupervised. This collective incompetence of adult authority speaks to a larger cultural fantasy embedded in the film, the dream that children are smarter, sharper, and more resourceful than the systems built to control them. It's empowering for kids and hilarious for adults, but it also reflects a growing skepticism of institutions in 90s America, where authority figures were increasingly depicted as flawed or laughably ineffective in pop culture. Speaking of Kevin, the movie also explores childhood autonomy and empowerment in a way that resonates beyond the comedy. Home Alone 2 doesn't just give him free rein in Manhattan, it celebrates it. Kevin navigates subways, luxury hotels, toy stores, and even Central Park with an independence most adults would envy. There's a thrill to watching him take control of his environment, bending the rules of a world designed by grown-ups, and that's one of the reasons the film has aged into cultural nostalgia. But there's also an unspoken commentary on privilege here. Kevin's independence works because of his resources, his father's credit card, access to money, and safety nets that others in the same city don't have. The movie invites audiences to enjoy the fantasy of freedom without necessarily acknowledging that freedom, in the real world, often depends on economic and social status. New York City itself is another fascinating cultural lens. The movie presents a stylized, romanticized Manhattan, a curated postcard version of the city rather than the gritty reality of the early 90s. Landmarks like Rockefeller Center, Central Park, and the Plaza become more than locations. They're aspirational symbols, designed to make the city feel magical and family-friendly. Yet there's a shadow underneath that postcard. The film hints at darker elements like street crime, urban isolation, and class disparities without ever lingering on them. This selective portrayal mirrors how Hollywood, during this period, rebranded New York for mainstream audiences, transforming it into a stage for adventure and holiday fantasy rather than a full reflection of its complexity. It's also worth noticing what's absent from the movie: racial and cultural representation. Aside from fleeting glimpses of background characters, the story's emotional and moral arcs revolve almost entirely around white, affluent protagonists. The film reflects a very narrow slice of New York life, one shaped by Hollywood's preferences at the time, which prioritized comforting escapism over authentic diversity. In doing so, it unintentionally highlights the cultural bubble in which Kevin's story exists, a world where privilege is invisible unless the plot needs you to notice it. Then there's the movie's delicate balancing act between moral values and holiday spectacle. It repeatedly emphasizes generosity, kindness, and empathy, but it does so within a framework drenched in fantasy. Kevin defeats criminals with cartoon violence, fixes loneliness with symbolic gifts, and finds safety in systems that wouldn't realistically work this way. It reassures viewers that the world is kinder and simpler than it actually is, giving us a cathartic vision of holiday redemption without making us confront its messier realities. What's remarkable is that none of these commentaries feel forced. They're seamlessly woven into the humor, chaos, and warmth of the story. The movie manages to juggle slapstick comedy, heartwarming family moments, and light social reflection without ever losing its identity as a holiday adventure. Audience engagement in Home Alone 2 functions like a well-oiled holiday machine. It hooks you fast, alternates adrenaline and heart, and keeps throwing rewards that make you laugh out loud, gasp, and then feel something warm in the chest, often all within the space of a single scene. The film's opening chaos grabs attention immediately. The frantic family packing and airport scramble aren't just comic noise. They function as emotional shorthand that sets the stakes. Kevin is isolated again, and because the story anchors itself so strongly to a single child's point of view, the audience is invited to experience New York as an enormous, playable world. That identification is the engine of engagement. Kids thrill at Kevin's cleverness and imagined freedom. Adolescents remember the gleeful transgression of a child outsmarting adults, and grown-ups often find themselves split between admiration for his resourcefulness and a guilty twinge about parental responsibility. Comedy-wise, the film layers forms of humor, so there's always something to trigger a reaction. Razor-sharp verbal one-liners and ironic exchanges, Kevin's dry retorts, hotel staff pomposity, marvelously timed physical slapstick. The trap sequences deliver precisely engineered pain that reads cartoonish rather than cruel. And situational set pieces that build anticipation until the payoff lands with satisfying percussion. Sound design and editing make each thud and scream feel like a drum hit. In a comedy orchestra, certain scenes become Pavlovian. The paint can swing. The blowtorch moment, rooftop bricks, and the tool chest tumbling downstairs are all timed to extract the maximum audible laughter and visual shock. And because the audience can see the setup clearly, thanks to wide coverage and precise blocking, the impact is immediate and communal. These are the moments people shout about in the living room and rewind for friends. Beyond laughter, the movie engineers emotional engagement with an effective counterbalance, pauses for wonder and human connection. The toy chest sequences create pure cinematic awe. Warm lighting, slow camera moves, and John Williams' leitmotif turn the toy store into a cathedral of childhood, and audiences respond with a nostalgic swell that often translates to quiet smiles rather than gasps. The Pigeon Lady scenes go deeper. They invite a softer, emotional register. What starts as curiosity and a little fear shifts into empathy, and Brenda Fricker's understated performance earns genuine tenderness. Viewers who came for the gags find themselves unexpectedly moved, which broadens the film's emotional palette and makes the eventual rescue feel cathartic rather than merely comic. The mother's search thread functions the same way. Intercutting frantic, adult-focused urgency with Kevin's capers keeps the stakes palpable and gives the final Rockefeller Center reunion a release that reads as both relief and holiday catharsis. That interplay of comic escalation and human warmth is why the film elicits such varied reactions. People laugh, then suddenly remember what matters, and the switch feels earned because the movie built up both tones deliberately. Engagement also comes from sensory choreography, music cues that tell you when to feel wonder or anticipate a gag, sound effects that sell physicality, and production design that gives the audience visual toys to return to on rewatch. These craft elements make repeat viewings rewarding. There are always tiny beats you missed, a background reaction, a spoken aside, and recurring motifs, the talk boy, the credit card prank, the turtle doves, that pay off in subtle ways. Quotability helps too. Memorable lines and recurring gags seed water cooler talk and memeable moments that extend engagement beyond the screening itself. The film's structural choices, clear setups with escalating payoffs, create natural clip moments for social sharing, and that keeps conversation alive across generations. But engagement isn't only about smiles and nostalgia. The film invites debate. The extremity of Kevin's traps sparks ethical conversation. Are kids allowed to enjoy seeing adults suffer in comedic ways? And the sanitized treatment of homelessness via the Pigeon Lady prompts deeper discussion about how family films handle social issues. Those ambiguities make the movie a frequent topic of analysis and friendly argument, which is another form of engagement. It transforms passive viewers into participants who argue about tone, ethics, and holiday messaging. This capacity to provoke gentle controversy is part of why Home Alone 2 resurfaces every holiday season and why people rewatch it with different lenses. Children experience it as pure adventure, teenagers as rebellious fantasy, parents as a mix of delightful comedy and cautionary tale, and critics as a cultural artifact to be decoded. The film's rewatchability is also social. It works brilliantly as family viewing because it contains multiple access points: slapstick for kids, character nuance for adults, and nostalgia for older viewers. That makes it a ritualistic watch for many households, an annual event where viewers anticipate favorite bits, recite lines together, and share the emotional peaks collectively. Communal viewing amplifies engagement. Laughter becomes contagious, and the emotional high of the reunion or the Pigeon Lady rescue hits harder when experienced together. Finally, the movie's layered approach, fast physical comedy threaded with quieter emotional beats and a few societally resonant tensions, means it rewards both casual viewing and deeper reflection. You can enjoy it as pure entertainment or peel back layers about consumerism, vigilantism, and compassion. Either route keeps the film alive in conversation, and that ongoing dialogue is perhaps the strongest measure of audience engagement. Home Alone 2 doesn't just get immediate reactions, it keeps giving them, year after year. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, sits in an interesting space when compared to similar films, both within its franchise and in the broader realm of family holiday comedies. On one hand, it's very clearly a sequel, built on the structure and formula of the original Home Alone, and many of its core beats: child outwitting adults, elaborate booby traps, comic villains who get punished in increasingly absurd ways, are directly lifted from the first film. In that sense, it feels familiar. Kevin is still mischievous, Harry and Marv are still bumbling, and John Williams' festive score still signals both humor and heart. For audiences who loved the first film, these elements offer comfort and continuity, reinforcing the formula that made Home Alone a cultural touchstone. Yet the sequel distinguishes itself by expanding the scale, scope, and stakes of almost every element. Whereas the first film was confined to a suburban home and its immediate neighborhood, Home Alone 2 propels Kevin into the sprawling, visually dazzling environment of New York City, turning the city itself into a dynamic playground for adventure and comedy. The grandeur of the Plaza Hotel, the bustling energy of the streets, and the iconic holiday landmarks give the film a cinematic sweep that distinguishes it from the original and other domestic-set family comedies. Compared to other holiday comedies of its era, Home Alone 2 ramps up both spectacle and ambition. Many films in the genre, like Miracle on 34th Street remakes, The Santa Claus, or National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, rely heavily on situational humor, quirky adults, or sentimental plots, but few blend intricate slapstick sequences with location-driven adventure as effectively. The trap sequences in Home Alone 2 are more elaborate than those in most other family comedies, incorporating physics-defying set pieces, visual gags, and precise timing that rival even the most choreographed action comedy sequences in adult-oriented films. Kevin's resourcefulness and improvisation elevate the narrative, giving a film a sense of kinetic energy that keeps it feeling fresh despite familiar story beats. Unlike some holiday films that rely primarily on emotional warmth or sentimental messaging, Home Alone 2 balances humor, suspense, and tenderness in a way that allows the audience to engage on multiple levels simultaneously, laughing at the slapstick, feeling tension during Kevin's confrontations, and experiencing genuine emotional resonance in quieter moments. Within the franchise itself, the sequel is both a continuation and an amplification. While the first Home Alone introduced the concept of a clever, resourceful child navigating a dangerous situation alone, the sequel leans into escalation. Kevin's traps are bigger, more inventive, and sometimes downright outrageous. The villain's failures are funnier and more cinematic, and the setting gives the story a new flavor without losing its identity. Home Alone 2 also adds new emotional layers, particularly with characters like the Pigeon Lady, whose arc provides depth and empathy absent in the first film, and Mr. Duncan, whose generosity introduces a moral dimension that expands the narrative beyond pure survival and revenge. These additions give the sequel a slightly broader thematic range, combining comedy with subtle social commentary and emotional warmth in ways that the first film only hinted at. In terms of director Chris Columbus' filmography, Home Alone 2 shares stylistic traits with his other works, including Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire, and later family-oriented films. Columbus demonstrates a keen eye for balancing comedic timing with emotional beats, a knack for choreographing child-centered adventures, and a mastery of pacing that keeps both young and adult audiences engaged. Compared to Columbus' other films, Home Alone 2 stands out for its combination of urban spectacle and intimate character moments. While Mrs. Doubtfire leans more heavily on character-driven comedy and disguise-based farce, and the first Home Alone focuses on suburban isolation, the sequel manages to integrate large-scale citywide adventure with small-scale emotional interactions, giving it a unique balance of scope and intimacy that few other family comedies achieve. When stacked against contemporaneous sequels or family comedies, Home Alone 2 also differentiates itself by how it escalates stakes without compromising the core charm. Many sequels tend to either repeat the formula without adding meaningful novelty or overreach with gimmicks that undercut the original's heart. Home Alone 2, in contrast, amplifies the elements that worked: Kevin's intelligence, the bandits' slapstick antics, holiday magic, while introducing new challenges, environments, and characters. The shift from suburban home to New York City is a particularly clever way to refresh the story. It gives Kevin new tools, new obstacles, and a larger canvas for inventive traps, while simultaneously making the city itself a character in the narrative. This expansion keeps the audience invested, provides fresh comedic opportunities, and positions the sequel as a standout example of how to execute a follow-up that feels both familiar and new. Even compared to other child hero comedies like Dennis the Menace, Richie Rich, or The Sandlot, Home Alone 2 maintains an unusually tight integration of plot, humor, and character growth. The stakes in these films are often smaller or less consequential. The antics are amusing, but the emotional resonance tends to be lighter. Home Alone 2 raises the bar by keeping Kevin's journey both thrilling and emotionally satisfying. The audience is invited to root for him, laugh at him, worry about him, and ultimately rejoice with him when he succeeds. The combination of intricate slapstick, clever plotting, strong emotional arcs, and visual spectacle gives the film a level of craftsmanship and engagement that distinguishes it from most contemporaries, making it more than just a holiday comedy. It becomes a template for how sequels can expand a world, deepen character, and escalate humor without losing the essence of what made the original beloved. Finally, Home Alone 2 excels in blending repetition with innovation. While it clearly references the first film, credit card gags, booby trap concepts, and the comic formula of Harry and Marv, the sequel refines, escalates, and modernizes these ideas for a larger, more ambitious setting. Each gag feels more precise, each trap more imaginative, and each emotional beat slightly richer. The film demonstrates that a sequel can be successful by taking familiar, beloved elements and combining them with new scale, settings, and emotional depth, rather than simply copying the original. This balance of nostalgia and innovation is one of the reasons Home Alone 2 remains not just a fun holiday film but a standout example of franchise execution that respects the source material while boldly expanding its universe. Home Alone 2. Lost in New York might appear on the surface as a high-energy holiday comedy full of paint cans, toy store antics, and booby-trapped bandits, but if you look closer, it's packed with symbolism and recurring motifs that enrich the story and subtly reinforce its themes. One of the most obvious motifs is flight and mobility. From the airport mix-up that sends Kevin to New York, to his subway adventures, and even the pigeons in Central Park, movement is constantly associated with freedom, agency, and possibility. Kevin's ability to navigate Manhattan alone, moving through the city like a miniature master strategist, is symbolic of childhood ingenuity and autonomy. Every chase, every narrow escape, every leap from staircases or rooftops underscores the idea that Kevin is not just physically agile, but metaphorically navigating the challenges of growing up and learning responsibility in a vast world. Even the recurring shots of the city's skyline juxtaposed with Kevin's small figure visually reinforce this motif. The world is huge, intimidating, and full of obstacles, yet through cleverness and courage, it's navigable. Isolation and connection form another symbolic layer. Kevin is alone in a metropolis of millions, which heightens both tension and adventure, but the film frequently contrasts his solitude with moments of connection. The Pigeon Lady is the clearest example. Her hidden presence in Central Park, initially perceived as frightening or mysterious, becomes a beacon of human empathy. Her pigeons themselves carry symbolic weight. Often associated with freedom, peace, and companionship, they echo Kevin's own journey from loneliness to connection. The act of giving her turtle doves is not just a Christmas gesture. It's a metaphorical bridge between two isolated souls learning to trust and care for each other. Similarly, Kevin's interactions with Mr. Duncan and the children receiving toys emphasize generosity, kindness, and the importance of community, all threaded through the narrative in subtle but recurring ways. The Plaza Hotel itself functions as a symbolic playground of wealth, power, and adult indulgence. For Kevin, it represents both a challenge and a fantasy, a world designed for adults that he temporarily commandeers, turning luxury into his personal playground and turning adult authority into comic foil. Every moment where he maneuvers through the hotel, hijacking elevators, ordering room service, and navigating staff, symbolizes the inversion of the adult-child power dynamic and the thrill of unrestrained childhood freedom. At the same time, the hotel stands in contrast to Duncan's toy chest and the Pigeon Lady's humble apartment, creating a visual and thematic tension between excess and moral wealth, luxury and generosity, spectacle and substance. This contrast quietly communicates one of the film's core lessons. Material abundance is fun and dazzling, but true value comes from empathy, kindness, and connection. Recurring visual motifs of light and warmth also reinforce thematic meaning. The film frequently highlights Christmas lights, decorations, and the glow of the toy store, which contrast against the dark alleys of New York or the nighttime park. These visual cues underscore safety, wonder, and the emotional highs of Kevin's journey, while darkness is often reserved for danger, loneliness, or the presence of Harry and Marv. The interplay between light and dark operates almost like a visual metaphor for morality and emotional states. Moments of generosity, connection, and cleverness are bathed in warmth, while moments of mischief or threat are shadowed, heightening both tension and symbolic clarity. Objects as symbols appear repeatedly throughout the film. The Top Boy, a small but ingenious tool, represents creativity and resourcefulness. The credit card, initially a source of temptation and fun, becomes a device that demonstrates both independence and the potential consequences of unmonitored power, and the turtle doves, as mentioned, symbolize trust, care, and connection between isolated characters. Even Harry and Marv's tools and criminal paraphernalia function symbolically. They're objects of greed and foolishness, and their repeated failures highlight the contrast between selfishness and ingenuity, chaos and cleverness. Every object is designed not just to serve plot mechanics, but also to reinforce personality traits, moral contrasts, and thematic undercurrents. Humor itself also becomes a symbolic device. The slapstick injuries suffered by Harry and Marv are cartoonish exaggerations, but they symbolize the consequences of greed, negligence, and malice. Kevin's meticulous planning and creative trap setting are not just sources of laughs. They metaphorically position intelligence, cleverness, and moral alignment against incompetence, cruelty, and selfishness. Even the physical comedy carries moral subtext. The film communicates through laughter which behaviors are rewarded and which are punished, embedding a subtle ethical framework beneath the entertainment. Sound and music are also tied into metaphorical storytelling. John Williams' score swells with triumph during Kevin's successes, reinforcing a sense of empowerment and moral rightness. Soft, gentle themes accompany moments of empathy or connection, particularly in scenes with the Pigeon Lady or Mr. Duncan, linking musical cues to the emotional and moral layers of the narrative. Recurring musical motifs subtly cue the audience to recognize thematic significance, turning humor, suspense, and wonder into a cohesive symbolic language. Even spatial geography in the film carries metaphorical meaning. Kevin's journey, from the chaotic airport to the towering hotel, to the streets of New York, and finally to places of connection like the toy store and Central Park, mirrors an internal journey from uncertainty to playful autonomy, to moral awakening and emotional growth. Movement through space mirrors the narrative arc. External obstacles correspond to internal challenges, and triumphs in navigating these spaces reflect Kevin's growing wisdom, empathy, and courage. In short, Home Alone 2 weaves a network of symbolism and metaphor throughout its narrative, production design, and visual language. Objects, locations, lighting, movement, and even comedic timing all carry deeper meaning, reinforcing themes of autonomy, resourcefulness, generosity, connection, and the contrast between material excess and moral richness. The film's humor and spectacle operate on one level, while its motifs and visual cues offer a second, more reflective layer. These symbolic elements enhance engagement, provide subtle moral guidance, and deepen the audience's connection to Kevin's journey without ever sacrificing fun, energy, or accessibility. Home Alone 2. Lost in New York occupies a fascinating position within its franchise, and understanding its historical and cinematic context adds layers to how we perceive it. As the direct sequel to the original Home Alone, it builds on a story that had already captured the imaginations of audiences in 1990 by presenting a familiar yet expanded universe. The core premise, Kevin McCallister, a resourceful and inventive child, outwitting adult antagonists while navigating isolation, is retained, but the sequel escalates both stakes and scale in ways that serve the broader franchise narrative. In the first film, the story was tightly bound to Kevin's suburban home, a contained microcosm where cleverness and slapstick could thrive within familiar spaces. Home Alone 2 takes that foundation and expands it to an entirely new arena, the vast, bustling, and iconic streets of Manhattan. By doing so, the sequel positions Kevin's adventures as not just a domestic challenge, but a metropolitan odyssey, reinforcing the character's ingenuity and adventurous spirit while demonstrating the series' capacity to amplify its own mythos. Franchise-wise, the film is an early example of a sequel that relies on both repetition and expansion. It retains core elements, Harry and Marv as bumbling, comically inept villains, Kevin's elaborate traps, the humor derived from exaggerated consequences, but simultaneously injects novelty through location, secondary characters, and thematic depth. The New York City setting alone contributes to the franchise's world-building. The city is rendered as a fantastical playground where danger and opportunity coexist, making it a character in its own right. The Plaza Hotel, Central Park, and Duncan's toy chest become iconic backdrops that serve as recurring motifs in audience memory, extending the franchise's cultural footprint beyond mere narrative continuity. In this sense, Home Alone 2 doesn't merely continue a story, it reinforces the brand identity of the franchise, inventive, high-energy, and family-centered, with a blend of humor, suspense, and heart. From a historical perspective, The film also captures early 1990s urban culture and holiday commercialization in ways that feel immersive and emblematic of the period. The Manhattan of Home Alone 2 is both real and idealized. It features recognizable landmarks and urban architecture while presenting a sanitized, magical version of New York that amplifies accessibility and spectacle. Scenes in the Plaza Hotel, with its opulent interiors and glittering grandeur, contrast sharply with Kevin's encounters in the bustling city streets or quieter corners like Central Park, effectively juxtaposing commercial extravagance with moral warmth. The film's depiction of New York also reflects early 90s family film sensibilities, where city life is exciting, chaotic, and full of opportunity, but never truly threatening. It's a playground for clever children rather than a site of complex socioeconomic realities. The franchise context also allows Home Alone 2 to deepen character arcs established in the first film while introducing new moral and emotional dimensions. Kevin's ingenuity is tested on a larger scale, and his moral compass is refined through interactions with characters like the Pigeon Lady and Mr. Duncan. These relationships expand the series' thematic repertoire, moving beyond mere survival and vengeance to explore empathy, generosity, and the responsibilities that come with capability. Meanwhile, the repeated presence of Harry and Marv serves to reinforce the franchise's comedic formula while giving the antagonists more texture. Their failures are more public, more elaborate, and staged within larger, more complex environments than the suburban home of the first film. This evolution illustrates how sequels can develop a narrative ecosystem where familiar elements are preserved but recontextualized to maintain freshness and audience engagement. Historically, the film also occupies a notable place in cinematic trends of the early 1990s. Sequels were increasingly expected to escalate spectacle while maintaining the essence of their originals, and Home Alone 2 achieves this by leveraging technology, location, and production design in ways that were ambitious for a family comedy at the time. The use of extensive location shooting in Manhattan, coupled with elaborate trap sequences and high production values, demonstrates how the sequel formula was evolving. Audiences expected larger stakes, more visual variety, and higher energy, and Home Alone 2 delivers all of these while remaining true to the franchise's identity. In addition, the film's release capitalized on the growing home video and holiday market, ensuring that it would become a seasonal staple for multiple generations, which in turn contributed to its historical footprint in both cinematic and popular culture. Moreover, the franchise continuity is reinforced through recurring thematic and symbolic elements. The focus on child empowerment, creative problem-solving, and moral clarity carries over from the first film, but in Home Alone 2, these themes are amplified by the complexity of the environment and the diversity of characters Kevin interacts with. The expansion to New York allows for visual and narrative motifs, pigeons, Christmas lights, skyscrapers, and city streets, that become iconic markers not just of the sequel, but of the franchise's broader mythos. These elements ensure that the series remains recognizable while offering opportunities for growth and innovation, illustrating how sequels can sustain audience interest by expanding rather than merely repeating familiar narratives. Finally, Home Alone 2's franchise and historical context highlight the film's dual function as both a continuation of a beloved story and a cultural artifact. It preserves the playful ingenuity, slapstick humor, and festive warmth of the original while situating itself in a more ambitious urban environment reflective of early 90s cinematic trends. The film also documents a specific moment in American popular culture, the rise of family-oriented blockbuster sequels, the celebration of urban fantasy spaces for children, and the commercialization of the holiday season as a cinematic spectacle. This dual role, as both entertainment and cultural snapshot, enhances its legacy, allowing audiences to appreciate it not only as a fun, high-energy comedy, but also as a piece of franchise strategy and early 90s cultural history. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York had a production budget that reflected both the ambition and scale of its predecessor while pushing the boundaries of what a family holiday sequel could accomplish in the early 1990s. The original Home Alone was already a financial juggernaut, made on a relatively modest budget of around $18 million, and its success allowed the sequel to receive a much larger allocation, estimated around $28 million to $30 million, enabling more expansive locations, more intricate set designs, and higher production values. The increased budget is immediately visible. The film's lavish Plaza Hotel sequences, the complex booby trap setups, and the extensive New York location shoots all benefit from this expanded financial backing. Even minor touches, like the intricate visual details of the toy store or the careful staging of the Central Park sequences, demonstrate that the production team had resources to not only recreate the slapstick genius of the first film but also to elevate it with cinematic polish. Every camera angle, lighting choice, and set construction reflects a level of investment aimed at creating a visually memorable, large-scale holiday adventure. In terms of production quality, the budget translates directly into spectacle without sacrificing the core comedic and narrative elements. The intricate trap sequences that define Kevin's ingenuity in the film required careful planning, stunt coordination, and specialized props. With more financial leeway than the first film, the filmmakers were able to orchestrate sequences that were both more dangerous and more visually elaborate, enhancing the comedic payoff and audience engagement. Location shooting in Manhattan, an expensive undertaking due to permits, crowd control, and logistics, further demonstrates how the increased budget was leveraged to create a sense of grandeur and urban adventure. The result is a film that feels bigger, faster, and more cinematic than the suburban-contained first installment, giving audiences an elevated viewing experience while maintaining the charm and humor that made the original beloved. Box office performance reflects both the financial wisdom of this investment and the film's audience appeal. Released during the 1992 holiday season, Home Alone 2 earned approximately $173 million domestically and over $358 million worldwide, making it not only a commercial success, but one of the highest-grossing films of that year. These numbers show a significant return on investment, with the budget-to-box office ratio emphasizing the franchise's profitability. Several factors contributed to this success. The original Home Alone's enormous popularity created instant brand recognition, and the sequel benefited from a pre-existing fan base eager to see Kevin's next adventure. The marketing campaign leaned into nostalgia, humor, and the spectacle of New York City, emphasizing both the holiday appeal and the inventive comedy sequences that had made the first film a cultural phenomenon. Trailers highlighted Kevin's cleverness, the returning villains, and iconic locations, giving audiences a clear sense of what to expect while amplifying anticipation. Audience reception played a critical role in sustaining box office momentum. Family audiences, in particular, responded enthusiastically to the mix of slapstick, holiday charm, and adventurous New York City backdrop. Word of mouth was instrumental. Parents appreciated the film's balance of humor and heart. Children delighted in the elaborate traps and fantasy elements, and holiday enthusiasts were drawn to the seasonal spectacle and festive score. The combination of established franchise loyalty and effective marketing generated strong opening weekend numbers, and repeat viewings during the holiday period bolstered overall earnings. Unlike many sequels that rely purely on name recognition, Home Alone 2 managed to capture both audience imagination and critical attention for its production quality, resulting in sustained box office performance. It's also important to consider ancillary markets, which further amplified the film's financial footprint. Home video sales, television rights, and seasonal re-releases contributed significantly to long-term revenue, reinforcing the franchise's ongoing profitability. The film's visual spectacle and iconic sequences, Kevin navigating the plaza, Harry and Marv enduring elaborate traps, and the festive toy chess scenes, made it highly marketable beyond the theater, ensuring that the investment in set design, props, and location shoots continued to pay off long after the initial release. The budget-to-earnings ratio demonstrates a clear alignment between production ambition and financial strategy. The filmmakers were willing to spend more to elevate the scope of the film, and audiences rewarded that investment. The careful use of resources, balancing intricate trap sequences, iconic New York locations, and detailed production design, meant that every dollar spent contributed to entertainment value and visual storytelling. The result is a film that feels bigger than life, visually engaging, and financially astute, proving that a well-managed increase in budget can enhance both the cinematic experience and box office results without compromising the franchise's identity or humor. Looking to experience Home Alone 2: Lost in New York? Here's how you can enjoy this holiday classic. Streaming services * the film is available on Disney+, offering high-definition viewing with a runtime of 2 hours and 1 minute. You can watch it with English audio and subtitles in various languages, including English, French, Spanish, and more. Digital purchase or rental * if you prefer to own or rent the movie digitally. It's available on platforms like Amazon Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at Home. You can rent it in HD for approximately $3.99 or purchase it for about $19.99. Physical copies * for collectors or those who enjoy physical media, Blu-ray editions of the film are available. Bundles featuring both Home Alone and Home Alone 2: Lost in New York can be found at reasonable prices. Best viewing experience * to fully immerse yourself in the festive spirit, consider watching the film on Disney Plus for its high-definition quality and ease of access. Alternatively, renting or purchasing a digital copy allows for flexibility in viewing on various devices. For those who appreciate physical collections, owning a Blu-ray copy can be a nostalgic addition to your movie library. No matter your preferred method, Home Alone 2: Lost in New York is readily accessible to bring holiday cheer to your screen.